Hello, Alasdair.
Hello. I was trying to think of a Regency intro. Oh, good evening. Oh, hello. Oh, toodle pip. Oh, what?
That's your it's more like, oh, tonight, dear listener, No, hold on. If it's Bridgerton, you've got to do like a, dear reader, today I am writing to you from the midst of the drama and scandal happening at the Bridgerton ball. Like,
Do you watch
writer.
Bridgerton? Are you a Bridgerton fan?
Not really. Nick, my partner, is, and I dip in and out when he's watching it. Not really, if I'm honest. What about you?
No, I watched maybe like 5 or 6 episodes of the first series when it came out, and I was
Didn't
like,
even watch that.
It's not for me.
That's fair. Well, then, what did you think of the Bridgerton episode, Doctor Who?
I thought it was great fun. I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time this week. I wonder, if you're already a Bridgerton fan, maybe this really hit even harder.
I wonder if people watch this as a Bridgerton fan and think it's great, or they think Bridgerton's better.
Yeah, because it's kind of like Bridgerton plus sci-fi. I wonder what overlap exists there.
A lot of Bridgerton-y people apparently worked in it. The choreographer they brought in for the dance scenes is the choreographer for Bridgerton.
Yeah, are they? That's interesting.
Yeah.
The dancing was good. That is one of my highs, the choreo.
Well, we will get into that, but how's your week been, Alasdair?
It's been fine. It's been an all right week. Yeah, how's yours been?
It's been good. I started a new job this week, which was...
Oh, yeah.
It was good. It's a bit intense, but that's always the way when you start a new job. But yeah, nothing went bad. Had a nice weekend, saw a lot of friends, feeling a little bit sleepy today. We're recording this on Sunday. We try and record
a sleepy Sunday.
a little bit earlier just to give us some more time to sort of think about the episode. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I watched the episode of Doctor Who twice already. Came out technically midnight yesterday. And I'm ready to talk about it. Also, one thing we haven't said in the podcast, Happy Pride Month, everybody. Happy Pride Month.
Oh, yeah. Happy Pride. Hi, gay.
Hi, gay. I think back to last year when we were recording, in Wholala last year, and go back if you haven't listened to them, we did, for the whole month of June, a different Pride special every single week. And we will be doing something Pridey at the end of the month, but we didn't want to interrupt the flow for season 1. But I remember sitting in the room and like just complaining to you the whole time. I was like, oh, it is hot. Gotta shut the windows. It is hot.
I'm sweating buckets. You know what? I'd rather have this over that any day.
100%.
Being sweaty for a Wholala episode is no way to live.
I think the only time that's like acceptable is if we're reviewing 42, and that's going to be the one time we can be hot.
It's the vibe. If you're dripping with like a glistening chest in your kind of little tank top, it's very 42.
It's very 42. But today we are wearing a little bit more than we would be in 42 because we're talking about the Regency Bridgerton special, season 1, episode 6, Rogue.
Yeah, I'm wearing a whole dress for this one. Big puffy dress.
Corset and all.
Corset and all, obviously, being true to it. And then once again, I was like, it's not a video podcast, is it? Didn't need to do that. Look at me.
But I can enjoy it.
Look, I'll show you on the camera. You see, it's basically a perfect replica of Ruby's dress. And I've had it adjusted to fit me.
It's a slightly different shade of yellow, but I do like it.
It's pretty close, isn't it?
It's pretty close, no, to be fair.
Yeah, I feel good in it. I feel nice in it.
You look gorgeous.
I've got the white gloves.
Are you wearing Psychic?
No, they're just normal. They're just crystal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, they couldn't do the Psychic ones on Amazon.
Well, as mentioned, we are talking about Rogue. Now, this aired on the 8th of June 2024, a mere 2 days ago, as of time of recording, and it currently sits on IMDb with a very healthy score of 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, yes, a very healthy score indeed. It was a fun episode, a fun, solid episode of Who.
Yeah, exactly. This felt like, and I've had a lot of people say it online as well, this just felt like, this is Doctor Who. Like, this is an episode of Doctor Who, which sounds like a very null and void critique.
You can't argue with that.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't argue. This is very literally Doctor Who.
It really is. And if anyone hasn't seen the episode, as always, we say jump on iPlayer, jump on Disney Plus, give it a watch. But if you have, or you want a quick refresh of the story, here is a recap of the episode.
The Doctor and Ruby are in Regency England attending the Duchess of Pemberton's ball. Ruby meets a tall glass of heartbreak, Lord Barton, who turns out to be more of a half-pint of shandy, and her brash and very modern self fascinates the Duchess. Ruby follows the Lord, who seems to be courting an attendee of the party, Emily Beckett, while the Doctor goes to speak with a mysterious and very brooding Rogue.
Rogue is clearly not from this period, and his Jonathan Groffness quickly infatuates the Doctor, and he follows him outside, where they find the body of the Duchess with all the life sucked out of her. She's been killed by a cholder, a shape-shifting bird species, who Rogue has been hired to capture and kill. He mistakes mistakes the Doctor for the shapeshifter and takes him onto his ship at gunpoint.
Meanwhile, Ruby becomes friends with Emily and they enjoy the ball. Lord Barton and the Duchess confer, both secretly shape-shifted Chulder. The Duchess says that she's chosen her outfit for the wedding and she wants to dress up as Ruby Sunday. Back on Rogue's spaceship, the Doctor becomes trapped in a triform, which Rogue deadlocks, so even his sonic screwdriver can't get him out of this one. After some playful flirting, a dance break to Kylie, and a montage of the Doctor's faces, including the mysterious Schalke Doctor, Rogue starts to trust the Doctor and frees him from the triform.
The Doctor brings Rogue onto the TARDIS to adapt the triform so it'll send the Chulder into a random dimension instead of killing them, and it becomes very apparent there's chemistry between them. As they lean in for a kiss, they're interrupted by a ding from the TARDIS. The triform is ready.
Meeting up with Ruby, they realise the Chulder are literally cosplaying as the people in the ball, very Bridgerton indeed, and are drawn to drama and scandal. To create a scene, the Doctor dances with Rogue in front of all the guests and acts out a huge fight. To increase the stakes, Rogue proposes for the Doctor. The Doctor emotionally takes the ring, then storms out, quickly followed by Rogue and the Chulder. Originally thinking there was only one Chulder at the party, they're shocked to see there are actually 4.
Ooh. Now, as Ruby takes Emily into the library, she reveals that she's from the future, which intrigues Emily, and she reveals that she's in fact the 5th Chulder, and she wants Ruby's body. As the Chulder make their way back to the ball to set up a wedding, the Doctor and Rogue follow and are horrified to see that Ruby will be the bride, supposedly having been killed and cosplayed by a Chulder. They trap the Chulder in the triform, and the Doctor gets ready to send them to another dimension, before realising that Ruby is actually herself, having defeated Emily with her psychic earrings battle mode.
Rogue tries to get the Doctor to send them to another dimension, even if it means sacrificing Ruby, but he can't do it. Understanding this, Rogue kisses the Doctor, which distracted him enough to take the Triform's remote and push Ruby out of the triangle, trapping himself in her place. He tells the Doctor to find him and pushes the button, sending himself and the Chulder to another dimension.
Solemnly, the Doctor sends Rogue's spaceship into orbit of the moon to stay safe until he can find him again. He tries to brush off his feelings, but Ruby doesn't let him, giving him a reassuring hug and allowing him the space to feel his feelings. With a quick salute to the sky, they head back to the TARDIS.
No, it's so sad. No, it was sad. It was nice. It was nice. It was a nice story, nice ending, nice sacrifice.
Really, really. Oh, no, a nice sacrifice. It was a good, nice sacrifice.
You know what we love? A nice sacrifice.
Yeah, well, before we get into what else we love, we reached out to you on our X account to let us know what you thought of the episode and hear what some of you had to say.
At Nick Draws said, I was a bit surprised how quickly 15 offered Rogue a place on the TARDIS, then remembered I was enjoying the gay F slurness too much to care. Alexa, play Can't Get You Out of My Head, hashtag bring back the Gruffalo, kiss kiss.
David Chpekapaku, friend of the pod, said, went in with very mid expectations and oh my word, very stunning vibes. Give Indira Varma all the awards. Lovely bit of subtle commentary about fandom. J'adore.
J'adore. Laura at House of Kaylee said, I loved that. I want Rogue to come back indefinitely. Biased because I love Jay Groff though. So much fun. We love a love story. And Ruby being badass. Defo missing the scene setting out how they get to places though.
I completely agree. Ethan, friend of the pod, said, right, let me see if I can do this. Gay. I'm not going to read all of them. He says gay a lot. And then ends with gay. 10 out of 10.
Gay.
Notes.
Yeah. So true. Bionicle Bottom said, I love that name so much. Such a good episode. I loved the gay moments, and I thought Millie acting as Ruby, acting as a Chulder, acting as Ruby was amazing. Also, love the Schalke Doctor reference. I can't wait to get more Rogue/Doctor romance. Oh, and the XX tape. Hopefully, you are filth.
And finally, the Rob T film said, felt like more of a, quote, regular episode, what with pretty much all of the latest run being kind of experimental, and it's nice to have writers that weren't former showrunners. I still don't care about Ruby.
Ooh.
Rough. But Rogue and 15's dynamic was the highlight of the story.
I can't relate to not caring about Ruby. I love that girl so much. What are you doing? I don't know what it would take for you to care about her. Maybe the legend of Ruby Sunday will win you over.
Listen, we've got a whole episode dedicated to Ruby next week with the return of her family, the return of Unit, the return of everyone. I'm excited.
Oh my God. So many highs of this episode. Absolutely rammed with them.
Mm-hmm.
Where should we? I don't even know where to begin. You pick.
Well, I just
throw a dart at the board.
I'll jump into a high. I'm just going to say, when this episode finished, I literally was like, there's been a lot of episodes that when I watched them this series, I was like, oh my God, I love that. Like when I finished 73 Yards, I was like, oh my God, I loved that. But with this, I just like, I watched it by myself at midnight and I just was like, I finished it and I was like, that was so good. I want to watch it again. Like I immediately was like, I want to watch it again. For me, sort of like a general high was the humor in the dialogue. I really, really love what we've been saying this whole series is that we want more diverse writers and more people in the writer's room, and to have people that weren't, it's a mad statistic. It's like, I think it's something like over 4 years and 3 months since we've had an episode not written by a former showrunner. That is wild. So to have an episode written by people that just aren't one of the big three was so good. And there was just the humor in this episode I loved. There's a line when the Doctor and Rogue are walking towards the TARDIS and Rogue's like, why isn't your ship cloaked? And the Doctor's like, it's behind a tree. Like, it's so good. I mean, we'll get into all the individual bits later, but the line when the Doctor's like, "Is that a wee smile from the most serious man in all of history?" Like that. Oh, it was.
I've
so
got a lot
good.
of good lines as well that I'm gonna come to that I picked up as well. That I agree. I think Doctor Who is really at its best when it's funny. I just think humor belongs in every story, no matter how dark it is. And I just love when a really funny writer comes in, because we know that Ncuti can do comedy. We know that Millie can do comedy. We have a supporting cast that can really do comedy as well. And it's my favourite part of it is when Doctor Who makes me giggle. I so agree with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess like to just come back on the humour point really quick, I really enjoyed Camilla Aiko as Emily Beckett. Her and Ruby had some very rose-coded interactions that I really liked. It reminded me of Rose in The Unquiet Dead with Gwyneth. And also her with Madame de Pompadour, and a nice twist at the end as well of Emily playing the character of kind of the clueless Regency character who doesn't quite understand what's going on, and she was just playing that very well and not understanding all that modern speak from the future. There were so many good bits, like she's like, oh, cushy, like comfortable, like a cushion, and then when Emily starts trying to impersonate Ruby's language and she's like, yeah, okay. It was, and she was like, yeah, maybe don't say that quite so much. And then when she's also talking about like her desires for a husband, which is so much funny when you realize she's like doing a bit. She's like, there may not be love, but at least a kindly smile at dinner. And she's like,
I love when they sort of regroup with the Doctor and Rogue later in the episode, and the Doctor's like, okay, and then she's like, and then Emily's like, I know that word. I know okay.
That shoulder was so committed to the bit. It's brilliant. She was like, what are these TV signals? And she knew. She knew
the whole time. Yeah, this was just such a funny episode. The performances all round for me were just so fun. Like the Doctor and his little like smirks around Rogue and like around Rogue. And I love like when Ruby's watching Emily and Lord Beckett have their like sort of argument love scene, and she's behind the library and she's watching it like she's watching a TV show, and they say something really scandalous and Ruby just goes like, oh! And like she can't stop herself gasping. It was so funny.
I love that as well when she comes in and she catches that and she's like, oh, it's all ruined and this has gone wrong and this has happened and my life is over. And she's like, oh, this is so Bridgerton. This is so Bridgerton.
I was like, they must have had to pay quite a bit of money from Netflix to get the licensing to use the term Bridgerton like that. Like,
right.
They would have had to pay for that.
I don't know. Is it something you're just allowed to kind of acknowledge exists?
They would have had to at least clear it, at least, like from my perspective, because I'll have to clear stuff. Like you'd have from Shondaland, you'd have to clear it from Shondaland. But I mean, it's so Like, I mean, like we might as well talk about that. But it's so Bridgerton.
RTD is held in like obviously really high regard in the industry. He probably can pull a few favors and say to people like, "Oh,
that's true."
A little nod to your show this week on Doctor Who and do it in the style.
Do you reckon he has Shonda in his phone? He just phones her up and's like, "Listen."
Yeah, I'm sure there's like a way of connecting quite easily, right? And
probably.
But yeah, I super cool. I love that the real world references are all starting to slightly collapse on themselves as well, because in this episode we have a reference to Kylie, obviously, in one of the best scenes in it. We play Can't Get You Out of My Head, and Kylie has obviously been in Doctor Who, and the Doctor knows the words to Kylie, but did not recognise Astrid Peth as Kylie Minogue. And it's all but it's fun. It doesn't matter. It's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. It's the second time actually in Doctor Who that Kylie's gotten a reference outside of Astrid Peth. It was a 10th Doctor episode where he said, "It's never too late," as a wise person once said. Kylie, I think. And I think that was before they'd cast her. So I just love that in this universe, Kylie Minogue exists and
just
Astrid
no
Beth
one clocks
exists.
the way Astrid looks.
No one clocks
Absolutely,
it.
exactly.
But the music, like you said, the music in this one was so good. Obviously, we got the really great Kylie scene, but I love how they lean into the Bridgerton-ness more and they have the modern pop songs, but like done in like Regency style. So we've got Poker Face later in it, and then we've also got Bad Guy Billie Eilish sort of towards the beginning. And it was so, they released a clip of the Bad Guy bit, so I knew that was coming, but the Poker Face bit really took me by surprise. And like I loved watching it with people, because I watched it by myself and then I watched it with people the next day. And I have a friend who loves Gaga, Kyle, you know him obviously, and he was sat.
I have a friend who likes Gaga. You say as a gay man, likely place to have.
I have a friend that likes Gaga. No, but he was sat there and he was like,
likely thing for your friend to like.
He was watching it and just like I was watching him watch it, and then like 8 seconds in, he was like, "Oh!" and like realized what they were doing. It was so funny.
I love that so much. I love that as well. There's pretty much no in-universe reason for that to have been playing in 1816, other than you can imagine that the Cholas turned up and so much wanted their Bridgerton fantasy that they put in a request. That's how I'm choosing to explain it.
Yeah.
But it was really good fun. I love that.
Very good.
Yeah, the soundtrack has been stellar lately. I think they really got the Regency feel right, just in kind of the regular incidental music, but also, weaving in Bad Guy, weaving in Poker Face. I don't know if they got Murray to do that himself, or if he's got an assistant.
I feel like it probably has someone else to do that.
Composer.
Yeah.
Could have been. Done really well anyway.
Yeah.
And and the soundtrack as well that I did a really bad extraction of over at our X account at Wholala Pod, and it's the music that plays when the Doctor kind of reveals all of their past faces. And I don't know what it was. It weaves in a little bit to this is / was Gallifrey.
Yeah.
And then comes out as a bit of a heroic theme. And I choose to read that as the Doctor theme, as in not the 15 theme, the 10 theme, just as the Doctor theme, because it weaves in a little bit of this is Gallifrey into it, and being the last Gallifreyan. Oh God, that scene was good. That scene was bloody good. Should we pivot quickly onto that?
We'll pivot. Let's go to that.
Hell.
Let me scroll to my notes for that, because I just have a big note in all caps that says the Schalke Doctor.
We're all over the place this
week. We are. Well, I texted you while we were watching it, because I was watching the episode and they start that, and I was like looking at all the Doctor's faces, and I looked at it, and then I suddenly saw Richard E. Grant, and I was like, huh? And I don't like skipping back or pausing when I'm watching the episode live. I like to just enjoy it all live.
No.
But I did pause it and go back, and I sent you a picture. I was like, is that the Schalke Doctor?
Yes, I very much love that. That whole scene was great, building up to that point. But that point was wonderful. I did the same thing. I smashed the space bar. I was cuddled up with the laptop, and suddenly I was like, who's that? And then I was like playing it, because their faces all look like eggs. So until they got to the kind of the left side of the screen, I couldn't really see who it was. Because Jodie Whittaker showed up, and I was like, that's an egg. I don't know who that is, but that's an egg. And then I was like, who is that guy? I was like, I don't know who that is. And then I was like, is that Richard E. Grant? And I truly forgot the Schalke Doctor, and my brain immediately went, the Curse of the Fatal Death. I was like, the Curse of the Fatal Death? I was like, that's strange. And then I realised it was the Schalke Doctor, but I think I might have texted you at that point and gone, wait a minute, is that? So that was great. And loads of fun theories have come off the back of that.
Yeah, no, tons. I saw someone saying that, like, maybe it's even the Great Intelligence, because he went into the Doctor's time stream and, like, messed it all around. For me, I actually really like... So some people get really, like, uppity about canon, and, like, we've always said on the podcast, Doctor Who has loads of canon, also no canon. And people get very uppity when they're like, oh, but that wasn't official, and blah, 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 blah. And I think what they're going to do with Doctor Who now is lean into what Marvel are doing with the MCU with their multiverse. I'm not saying Doctor Who's going to go multiverse, but basically say anything that is Doctor Who somehow is connected, whether it's a different time stream or a different dimension. They're saying that, like, the third Doctor's face in that little sort of pendulum of different Doctor's faces is actually taken from dimensions in time. So that is canon now.
It's John with his nan hair.
Yeah.
You know, when he had that really big nan hair in that one. And that is incredibly funny to me. Now, because of the fact that they went to the trouble of, I can't remember who put this on their Twitter. I think it was someone who'd done the graphics for that series and has maybe now left the show, so was able to say this. But they said that their manager, who works in the visuals department, overseeing graphics, had to go and supervise a photo shoot with Richard E. Grant for that face. So they didn't just pluck out, for a cheap bit, a picture, pay Richard, let him know it was going to be in it, stick it in. They went to the trouble of booking him, going and doing this whole photo shoot, overseeing that with a team, and then including it. So it was a very deliberate choice. And therefore, I feel as well that in doing Dimensions in Time, John, I really think it's a deliberate joke because of all the pictures you could have pulled out. It is such an obscure one to have chosen. I'm sure there are better, more high-res pictures that they could have gone with. But they did a great sample of pictures, I think, for all the Doctor's faces, because something they've done in the past that I think is horrendous is they almost go to just pick out the promo photo picture.
Oh, I get so annoyed when they do that.
And this one, they at least bothered, I think, to go through the episodes and pull out stills.
Yeah.
So they were almost plausibly scans of the Doctor's faces from afar or in other alien databases or whatever.
Yeah, one of the only ones I was able to pull was the one of the 10th Doctor was from the next Doctor, the Cyberman Christmas special. And I think the one of 14 was taken from the Giggle when he's walking around and he sees the Toymaker for the first time in the street. But yeah, I completely agree with you because I get fed up. One scene that criminally did this to me was when I think it was Let's Kill Hitler, when the Doctor has talked to the TARDIS interface and he's show me someone that I like. And it shows him different companions like Martha, Donna, Rose. God. And they're all very clearly the series 3 and 4 promo shoots. And I'm just oh, I hate it.
They are just cutouts. It's so funny. It's terrible. Yeah, they sort of turn up in the TARDIS display fresh off of that one photo shoot. Those pictures that we've all seen. It was a bit to cycle back slightly on the whole capture scene. The Scottish was lovely. Was that a wee smile from the most serious man in history? And it says it's wired for sound. Yes!
It's so good.
Finally, a bit of Scottish shooty weaved in was excellent. And then the Kylie, oh my God, so essential. That choice was brilliant. Absolutely, I believe, an RTD specific choice.
Oh, yeah.
And very much makes me wish that we had the push the button in Space Babies. But the lip syncing, the dancing, the way it stops and starts 4 times, I think was really good. And they're just I'm just standing still, baby, was brilliant as well.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I think that the Doctor works, as in this Doctor specifically, works so well when he's able to lean into that cheeky fun side. And I love that Rogue kept turning off the music and then the Doctor was oh la la la, and turn it back on again. And it was so their chemistry,
boot it right back up again.
Their chemistry in this was so good.
Yeah.
I watched Unleashed and Shooty says that they first sort of met on a Zoom call and he said it was kind of a chemistry test and he was just yeah, it was sort of a chemistry test and there was chemistry.
There was chemistry.
Yeah.
It was, on rewatch as well, I think me and my partner both agreed they have the chemistry there. That works. I like that it opens with essentially a sonic gaydar with Ruby's interference on her headphones and it just beep, 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 beep. And if you're wondering, yes, us queer people do have that by default built in. It's just a way of visualizing that for the straight
It's just
viewer.
nice to know where we all are.
Just nice to know where we all are, isn't it? It also kind of makes sense, I think, character-wise, that, a bounty hunter is a little desirable for the Doctor, because it marries up, I think, with his attraction to River, the, quote, psychopath, who I don't believe is a psychopath at all, and, trying to redeem Missy, and always having some draw, I think, to some of those, devious characters. It kind of makes sense that he's it's a little bit bending my moral code, but I kind of find it hot, and it sort of makes sense.
Shooty plays horny so well in this episode. he just plays horny really, really well. I think that Jonathan Groff is so great. Just sort of moves on to Rogue as a character. I think Jonathan Groff is so good in this. I was really excited when they announced him because he is an actor that has been in so many big things. He's been in Frozen, he's been in Hamilton, he's been in Glee, and he's been quite diverse in his performance. He's done quite a lot of different stuff. And so I was interested to see how he was going to play this character. And he plays it quite seriously, but that scene, like you said, with the is that how you smile? That just, you could see him starting to chip away. And I really, really loved it. I feel like the Doctor just never lets the playfulness end with him, the whole time, even when he leads him into the TARDIS and he starts singing Pure Imagination. That was so Doctor-y. That was such a Doctor-y thing to do. I really loved that.
You're so right. He didn't let up on the playfulness. He's always trying to chip down his walls because he sees something there, which is quite sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that as well. I like the comparison of Rogue's massive fuck off ship and then the tiny TARDIS concealed behind the tree was really fun. And then the Doctor leading him in and it being like, it's not my first ship. And then, when he does go in, the Doctor's like, come with me. And then you hear like an, oh my God, like echoing from deep inside the TARDIS is really fun.
Yeah.
I like the Doctor is so cool and calm about his capture and only gets flustered in like the last 4 Vexels of the countdown. I feel like RTD does write men that he's into personally, or slash, what is it people say he does? They say like he self-inserts the guy he wishes he was into these stories and did that with Captain Jack. I think it feels like, RTD's. I'm not saying that Jonathan Groff is not an attractive man, but I think it's RTD's personal heartthrob, I think, written into the story as well.
I feel that too. I mean, I even felt that with the last episode with Ricky September, when he was meant to be like the guy that everyone was sort of like gooning over, and I was like, really?
Yes.
Like this guy?
Gooning over?
I mean, I said what I said. But with him and Rogue in this, I like that, like we said, they didn't...
Turning on my bubble to goon over Ricky September.
That's what people were doing. They were gooning over Ricky September.
That's what they were doing.
But I love, like we're saying, they didn't really let up the fun. Like, even when he's like leading him to the TARDIS and he's got the gun to his back and he's like, this isn't a look good. He says, this isn't a good look for you in any century. But when they're in the TARDIS and they have that kind of like quite serious speech about like how we have to live, like for those who we've lost. And I like that we got that moment because I think that I kind of wish that scene was with Ruby, but I like when the Doctor or when any sort of companion or character like that can play between the humor and then there is a serious undertone to it. There's like a level of knowledge and understanding that he's not an idiot. He's funny and he's silly. And I think that he's like playing up a Rogue to make him think that he's a bit of an idiot when moments like that remind you, no, this is the Doctor. Like he's the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, it's true. It's like the Doctor was already really attracted to this character, sees him from afar, and is like, oh, hello. And the Doctor had, I think, been hinting a little bit. We'd heard it a few times, kind of like long hot sun with Harry Houdini. Anytime that Ruby found a character hot, the Doctor found him hot too. There was Sir Isaac Newton, 14, was also like, was it just me or was Sir Isaac Newton kind of hot? And it's like, no, it was hot. And then it was that kind of like, oh, is that who I am now? It's like, oh, well, I was never that far from the surface, mate. So, I mean, I saw this coming. So it was like he saw him and was like, you know what? I deserve this. I had a horrible week last week. I'm going to go over and say hello. I'm just here for fun. Why not? He's with his bestie. Ruby's on board with it. I don't think she'd mind if they need the TARDIS for a little bit. Or indeed...
She just walks up and there's a sock on the TARDIS door.
No. It'd be a cowboy hat for sure.
Oh my God.
Or you know what? They just pop off. They come back later.
Yeah.
And it's like, anyway, so he's coming with us now. Okay. He's going to be with us for a while.
Wouldn't mind.
Okay. We can drop you off. We can
tell you what, Ruby, you go home for a bit. I'll come back. It's fine.
Tell you what, I'm gonna leave you a cherry for a week or two. A week or two in your time, a few years in my time.
Exactly.
And we'll pick up.
Yeah.
That'd be fine. So, but yes, no, it's as if he had that mutual attraction, and then almost as the pieces fit together of like, you lost someone too. You're traveling on your own. And then they have that nice mutual invitation to travel, which was, I don't think it's ever really happened, where he's like, you could come with me, and then you could come with me.
Yeah, I like he was like, oh, fair
across
point,
the stars.
like, fair point.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever happened. The Doctor's been invited back.
Yeah. I heard a few people online going on about like, oh, like is the Doctor gay now? Like he's only ever really like women, like this feels really out of the blue. And for me, I don't really necessarily agree with any of that. That was my very political way of saying you're all wrong. I feel like the Doctor has always been not always been a very sexual character, but certainly with a New Who been a very sexual character. And people were saying, oh, this was really quick. Like his love story with Rogue felt very quick. But for me, it really emulated Astrid Peth. It really emulated Madame de Pompadour, like this really hot one episode love story. And even as far back as like the Capaldi era, when he was talking to Bill about how Time Lords have moved on beyond like the old ways of gender, like it's always been hinted at that like Time Lords just don't really care. And I think as times in the real world move, times in storytelling and Doctor Who move, so obviously like in the 80s we weren't going to get an interracial gay kiss in 1963. I don't think that was going to happen. But for me, it didn't feel like a very rushed outcome. It felt very believable. I really was behind it. It felt like it was building on what's happened in Doctor Who before. It felt very in line with what's happened with the Doctor and other characters before. And genuinely, just for me as a gay viewer, I just was absolutely loving seeing my favorite character on my favorite TV show behave in ways that I see in my life. And like, I was watching it obviously with Kyle, and he was getting a little bit emotional at the end, because
Kyle, for context, is the non-Who fan viewer who's been dragged along by the two of us for all these viewings and has been forcibly made to enjoy Doctor Who.
Exactly.
He's the true litmus test of a casual viewer.
That's exactly what it is. And it makes me think of all the like gay kids and gay teens who will be watching the show, and it makes me think of like what I was like at the age that I was watching Russell's first era. And like, we've talked about it on the pod before, but seeing Captain Jack kiss the Doctor very flippantly and not in a romantic sense really stuck with me.
Yeah, that was quite a big deal.
Yeah, it was certainly a big deal. So having something like this, which is like intentional and there's love behind it and it's passionate, I can only imagine how much it's going to help the like young queer generation watching this.
That's so true. So, yes, a few things I'd say about this. One is, I think the character of the Doctor historically was constrained a bit by the landscape on television, the expectations of what you can and can't show on screen. With the first Doctor, they were very reluctant to, I think, even include the reference for granddaughter, because they were like, oh no, we can't imply that our main character has had sex. That'd be so unacceptable. And so we had this, I think, for those reasons, a protagonist who was unromantic. And then obviously it was a massive controversy in the TV movie that the Doctor had a kiss. And then as we've kind of come back to TV, we had another kiss with Chris Eccleston, but that only happened at the very end of the series, a kiss with Captain Jack and a kiss with Rose. 10 was a really horny character.
He really was.
And that was arguably a little bit of an overcorrection, because I found that the 10th Doctor was maybe a little too horny at times. It was like, and it was always the blondes. It was always Astrid.
Oh, she was blonde. What a surprise.
Oh, she was blonde. What a surprise. Head over heels for. And I liked it almost being a special occasional thing that the Doctor really fell in love, which I still feel it is with this story.
Yeah.
But I like it when it's a special occasional thing, that there is something about the character of that person that the Doctor is really drawn to. Yeah. The Doctor being like a horny character who kind of meets someone and quickly falls, I think generally, even with the 10th Doctor, doesn't massively appeal to me. But anyway, I don't hate it for now.
Yeah.
And then they kind of went back in the 11th Doctor's era, where he had like a special thing, but exclusively with River. The 12th Doctor, again, I think was pretty much exclusively romantic for the character of River, because that had already been set up, but they didn't set up any new romantic relationships. No. And the love he had for Clara was this interesting kind of like non-sexual romance that happened between the two of them, where they were like very in love, but there was no physical affection between the two of them beyond a hug. Do you know what I mean?
I never felt any of that kind of relation with them.
And then 13, I think they very much, eventually established that there was a queer relationship between the Doctor and Yaz. The criticism that people rightly made about that one is that they just never quite fully
committed to
allowed that relationship to. They didn't commit to it. They didn't allow it to develop beyond kind of like, oh, if it was anyone, it'd be you, but I can't. They never got to kiss. They never really got to hold hands. Nothing that ever really went beyond kind of what was like physically a friendship between the two of them. Friendly hugs, friendly cuddles, friendly ice creams, and that was a real shame. And I think in this one, they've made that correction in that they've said, no, you know what? We're going to do a big fat kiss. No ambiguity about what this is. It's nice they made that correction. The other correction I think they made that was great in this was that in 2021, you'll remember Russell T Davies heavily criticised Disney's poor representation in Loki for their kind of bisexual representation, where they did that like, yeah, Loki's bi actually for the first time. We're confirming he's bi. And it was this one line that wasn't explored. It wasn't shown on screen. It was so lazy. It was so Disney sanitized. And Kate Herron, who was the producer on Loki and a Who fan and wrote for this episode, defended the efforts and actually blamed Disney for that. And then obviously 2023, RTD books Kate to write this episode and co-write this one. And in this one, Kate is the one who actually then wrote or is one of the writers who wrote Now the Doctor is basically canonically bisexual, big gay kiss, or, you know, if not bi, whatever they are, like, you know, they're some Time Lord other thing, but, you know, a queer character by all intents and purposes, right?
Undeniably
and it's nice
queer.
that there was like an opportunity to do that on screen as well. I mean, in terms of like, did I feel like for me it was this big emotional moment as a Who fan? I think I've been spoiled because I feel like we've actually had a show that for a long time has almost felt like very much for us and in our corner as queer fans, and it's been lovely. It's nice, I think, now that they have really said, like, no, we're going to do this the right way. We're going to give you a queer lead in one of the biggest shows in the world, in the longest running sci-fi of all time, on Disney Plus, on the BBC, with all this money behind it. We are saying our lead is played by an openly queer black man.
He's a gay man, no.
He's a gay man, no, and you know he's going to get a big fat steamy kiss on screen. And what I also think has been so positive about this as well, which is really nice, is that I do genuinely feel that Who fans are quite pleasant to engage with. Like, I feel like the reception to this, generally, I really do. I think there are corners of every fan community who are incessant and irritating, and there are on this one as well. But they were almost like, I feel like the Richard E. Grant inclusion drew so much fire from the most annoying corner that they didn't have time or energy to work out how to like be angry at two things at once. And so they were so like, but the canon, that they couldn't like also be mad about the gay kiss. And they decided like, okay, I'm going to pick one thing. It's this doesn't make sense to me, the Schalke thing, which was nice. But I mean, I'm sure the story is very different over in different social bubbles. I mean, like, as in, I think on Instagram and Twitter, everything I saw was a really positive response to this story, because I think they've been seeding it for a long time. I feel like Jodie's Doctor was queer. I'd read that as the Doctor was always just attracted to women in every life, because I always felt like the Doctor was so anti-men historically. Like, you know, the Ninth Doctor would have hated Rogue. He would have been like, you twat, you know?
Yeah.
I felt like would have been like, you're in my way. Yeah, you know, and would have learned to tolerate him in the same way that he learned to tolerate Jack. Whereas this one was a bit like, oof, fit. And that, I think, wouldn't have happened almost for any Doctor before now. I think it's a nice switch up to do it this way. It's nice the Doctor gets a romance. It makes sense that it was done in the Bridgerton story. Of course, this was the right place to put a romance.
Yeah.
And I agree with you as well. Do I feel like it was rushed? No, because I think if you then sat back and you said, had this been, you know, a male Doctor and a very beautiful woman who we fell in love with across that story, if it was David Tennant playing the Doctor for this one and it'd been a beautiful blonde, like, would we have felt that same story was too rushed?
The answer is probably not. Yeah.
Like, probably not. I think it's probably because people are not used to seeing the queer relationship on screen.
I think that's what it is. I mean, for me, I love just talking about Captain Jack. I love all the tweets where people are saying like 2005 to 2024, welcome back 9 Jack Rose, like with him, Rogue and Ruby. Yeah, I, to be honest, whether or not, I mean, I agree with you. I think that the majority of people that I've heard have just loved it, or like been so bothered by the Schalke thing that like they don't care. It's like having the dance scene. Like, I just think like it's that the dance scene for me was their way of saying fully, wholly, and unapologetically, like, this is what we're doing. And I think, like you said, sealing it with the kiss is their way of being like, no, there's no way to misinterpret this. I love as well, like you were saying with Kate Herron and Brian E. Redmond, the writers of this episode, they apparently were the ones that said to Russell, oh, can we like make this a queer relationship? Can we? Because they were writing for Rogue. Yeah. And I think they were like, they like went into writing that and they brought it to the table. They wanted it to be
I love
queer.
that.
I really, really like it. And I think that this whole storyline, it makes me care more about 15. I think it really builds him and Ruby's relationship more, like at the end when he's like, right, it is onward, fine, next. And he does a very doctory thing. And it's Ruby to be like, no, don't do that. Like, we're not doing that anymore. We went through therapy, okay? You're not doing that.
Yeah.
And even like the flashback with Carla Sunday, when you see that like sort of 30-second scene where the Doctor's promising to keep her safe, I just think this episode does a really good job of making me care even more about all the characters.
Yes, absolutely. I think it hit those emotional beats really nicely. And I think, again, given the time constraints of 45 minutes, this was actually maybe one of the best paced stories for the amount of stuff that it hit within that 45 minutes as well. As always, I'd love to see it be an hour and 45 minutes, but hey, listen, it's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Before, they've done a really good job of kind of implying the Doctor's queerness. They've, as you said, spoken a lot about kind of the construct of gender barely exists for the Time Lords. And then, Bill says that, like, but you still call yourself Lords. And the dialogue around that, around kind of like gender and sexuality has been very good. I think what there's always been room to do before is to say, no, you're seeing something where it's not there. No, that's just one reading of it. And it's always given space, I think, to be like, well, you can interpret it as a queer story. You can interpret that as a romantic relationship, but there's also room to not. If you don't like it, you can just kind of tune out of those bits.
Yeah.
It's nice that this is something you cannot tune out of. And then therefore, as well, you've seen like, a lot of stories today on Sunday that we're recording this, a lot of the news outlets have picked up on it, and some people have wrongly called it as well Doctor Who's first queer kiss, which it is
that
not.
pissed me off when I was seeing it. And it was quite reputable sources as well saying that, and I was like, excuse me.
Yeah. I was like, no, not quite. But it's nice that it's very cool. I think I don't think it's sinking in for me yet, and it will, how significant it is that it is the lead character that they've done this for. I do think massive credit to RTD actually for coming in and for the writers of this story and just saying like, let's be completely unambiguous about this and what it is, and just double, triple down on this is the kind of show this is as well. This is the kind of stories we want to tell. And if like you're not into it, like everything else is there on iPlayer for you, baby.
Yeah,
like 60 years of stories. Like pick and choose, like find something else in there that you do like. If this is really that much of an issue for you, then like the whole rest of it's there for you. But like this is the direction we've gone in as a show. These are the stories we want to tell. This is the message we're trying to send. And I think it really does as well draw out like, it draws out the homophobes and forces them as well to kind of almost like specify what is your issue with this story. Because what bothers me so much is when fan communities go, wow, that show's gone woke now. Star Wars has gone woke. Doctor Who's gone woke. And it's like, but what specifically is your grievance with this story?
Yeah.
And it forces them to be in a position where they go like, I don't like a gay kiss. And it's like, why don't you like a gay kiss? And they can go, well, it's the character. Oh, it's too rushed. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's the... And I think it forces some people into a position where they show their hand a little bit about kind of almost like, well, I don't like it because I don't like seeing two men kiss.
Yeah.
And that's it. And people go, kids watch this. And it's like, well, what do you think's wrong with kids seeing two men kiss? And it almost forces people, I think, a little bit into just admitting, like, if that's your prejudice, that's what it is. And that's what you don't like.
Yeah.
I think there's some room for people to say that they prefer the Doctor to be an asexual character, and but I think that's probably based on, like we said, the traditional telling of that character who was limited by the constraints of television.
That's exactly
in
it
the
for
60s
me.
through to the 80s.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it for me. It's that people are moaning about how, he never was like this. And I was like, yeah, but that show also started being made in 1963. We're not in 1963 anymore, But
yeah exactly.
I
That
loved
Doctor
it.
was never going to kiss anyone.
I know.
Yeah,
I just loved it.
Exactly. I mean, that's it, right? That's the only piece you need to know, right? They didn't even want the Doctor to have a granddaughter because they didn't like a Doctor that had any relationships romantically happening for their lead. They kind of felt that, on the BBC we can't do that. So had the show started somewhere else with it, would it have been different? Maybe. But that's one of the first thing they did. They tried to bring it back in the 1990s as a movie, and the first thing they do, they're like, romantic relationship, big kiss.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we need.
Yeah, I think, again, the decisiveness over fans, then they were like, but he's never done that. And I'm like, wouldn't it be so boring if he always did stuff that he'd always done,
But also, like, at this point, are you shocked? Because so much of what's been done in this series, I think, has been about deliberately pushing the boundaries of Doctor Who. Sometimes as well, you can feel that things are being done almost to ruffle feathers and to push the boundary.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe that's where it feels a little like, all right, I get what you're trying to achieve. I see how you're trying to push this. I see that you're trying to create a conversation, and I can see that you're trying to be a little controversial deliberately. And I think that maybe is where people feel a bit ruffled as well, is that maybe they feel things are being kind of pushed too fast.
My younger brother actually said this really well, and he listens to the podcast, and he said, because we used to always say this about, did you used to watch Arthur, the cartoon Arthur?
I did.
Every day when you're walking down the street. Anyway, I remember as a kid watching that, really liking it, and then by the time I was getting to, I guess, 9 or 10, it became very apparent that every episode had like a moral and was trying to teach you a lesson. And as a kid, I was like, that kind of puts me off it, because like I don't always want to feel like I'm being made to learn stuff. And I think some of the best TV is where they're teaching you stuff And some of the best TV is when they teach you something you don't even really notice that they're doing it. Whereas I think that sometimes with this era, there have been moments where like you're like, oh, okay, I hear you. I agree with you, but I hear you.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I think that's it. Is sometimes, well, I say sometimes, pretty much every episode I've gone like, right, yeah, I see the point you're trying to tell. The point you're trying to make, I got it. Received.
Message received and understood.
A critique, I guess, would be that on the homophobia front, he was kind of like, well, you haven't done your research very well. 1816, like, let's do something that will really ruffle their feathers. And they go in for a dance. And at that point, you could have believed that everyone in the crowd is a cholder, because the homophobia, like the reaction that he was almost setting up, just felt like it was barely there for me. It felt like we had one person go, my ladies, this is shocking, as if to go like scandalous, as in like, oh, he's dancing with someone else's husband, more than, oh my God, those two men are dancing romantically. I'm repulsed because I'm a person from the 1800s who has a very strict Christian worldview and a very hierarchical, class-based society. And this is repulsive to me. They were kind of just like standing back, mouths agape, but kind of like respectfully allowing them their dance. And when the doctor storms out, they kind of clear a little path for him to make his way out. No one says a word. No one boos, no one tries to intervene, no one tries to stop it, no one throws a comment their way. There's not really a resistance to what happens. They watch quite passively. So that maybe like, and it would have ruined a nice moment, I guess, if they had. But in terms of like, you know, feeling like there was really any authenticity or payoff for that, like, you haven't done your history. This lot, they're really homophobic. And then they do the dance and it's like, are they? Because they seem kind of okay with it. So maybe that was a low for me, that there wasn't, you know, a huge amount of that.
See, for me, I couldn't disagree more. And I love it when we're like this. I love it when we're divisive on the pod. Yeah, I couldn't disagree more. I think that they perfectly struck the balance. I think that addressing this, like, in like a kind of playful way, really matched the tone of the episode where he was like, where Rogue just doesn't get it. He's like, why would us dancing together like cause a problem? And the doctor's like, oh, you did not research Rira. But I think, kind of like you said about ruining the moment, I think that it's not in this episode, in this type of episode, and in the time space that we've got, and in the story we're telling, this isn't the time to be having like a horrible homophobic attack. And I also think that arguably like having like consistent trauma porn for that doctor, like he's obviously just faced like horrible racism the episode before. And if he's facing like strife homophobia in this episode, I think as a viewer and as queer viewers and as queer black viewers, people watching this, I think that that wouldn't serve the purpose of the story very well. And I think that having that kind of playful, like, oh my goodness, like, how scandalous. For me, the way that I was reading this episode, this isn't a historical drama for me. For me, and maybe there'll be a very literal answer for this in The Legend of Ruby Sunday about like Ruby manipulating events, because she keeps saying about how Bridgerton it is. You know, they're playing bad guy, they're playing Lady Gaga in the background. There's no historical explanation for this, but I don't think they're doing a historical accurate piece. I think they're doing a Bridgerton episode. And for me, that is how you would read the situation in the Bridgerton world. I've not watched the show enough to really know. I think they've just introduced a queer character in the 3rd season. But it's something that like they'll address that like, oh, this is a bit, scandalous. But for the purpose of the story, like, you know, the lights dim and they're going for the dance and all that. And it's, for me, having the reaction they did is as much of a style choice as having the lights go out when they're having their intimate moment. You know what I mean? So I think it served it. I think it served it very, very well. And like, I don't think that they could have played it the other way in this episode.
Yeah, that does make sense. I suppose it works well for the story that they don't have to get stuck on those points. It doesn't have to kind of derail a narrative, and it doesn't have to kind of derail as well the emotional impact of them having that moment together and dancing and creating a distraction and creating a scandal.
Yeah.
I get that. It feels maybe a little like they're kind of picking and choosing when and when not to turn on.
I think they exactly are.
The experiences. But you're right, they are. And I think maybe that's just something to accept, is that, you know, especially with historicals, Doctor Who is not anymore attempting to do, you know, anything especially accurate. They're trying to do a bit of a kind of like, it's inspired by real events, but also it's a story with aliens.
Well, I was going to say, like, there's a spaceship on the lawn and bird people, like, you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. So it's not like, you know, really a point to get too hung up on.
Yeah.
If I was then just to pivot us back to something that we both really liked, and we talked about the Chula.
Yes, exactly. I think,
since we mentioned those bird queens.
So for me, the Cholda were such a great like one-off villain. Like sometimes you see a villain like the Weeping Angels who have a story that introduces them and you think, oh my God, what a great villain. I can't wait to see them come back. And the Children, I think, just worked really well as a one-off villain. I loved all their little lines like, oh, we are scandalous, like leaning into the whole Bridgerton thing. And also, like, to be fair about the homophobia point earlier, the woman who said, oh, ladies, this is scandalous, is the Cholder. Like, she's saying what she thinks everyone else would say. But a big thing that I liked about them is that they're not evil with evil intention. They're kind of just there for the bants. Like, they're doing evil things because it's fun and not because they want to be evil. I do think there's a couple like points that like either a little bit on the nose or a little cringy, like when the alien actually says the word cosplay, like, we are going to cosplay. I was like, oh, that's a bit on the nose. But like, I also think that Doctor Who like is just slightly cringy at points and it is just like a bit on the nose. So for this kind of villain where their whole shtick is that they are cosplaying as like Bridgerton characters, I just thought it was so good.
Yes, I agree. I like the it's like a fairly straightforward villain of the week. Like, they'd rather be you. Like, that's what's scary. They want to dress up as you. And I liked the kind of on the noseness, I guess, of like, oh, I want to be her next. Every good party needs an outfit change. And she's so interesting. I want to play her. And I shouldn't have been the staff. I should have played you. Like, I think it was quite fun. And then being like, you know, totally desensitized, like the violence of what they're doing and just enjoying dress up.
Yeah.
I think it being a bit of a nod to the fans was quite nice. I think the threat was pleasantly low. Like, I know they said at the end, like, you know, Doctor, if they make it out of here, then it's London, then it's the world. I thought, no, it's not. It's fine then. It's not. Like, it's not. It's just not. It was really funny. My boyfriend was watching. They were all trapped in the triangle at the end and they couldn't move. And it was like, you've got to send Ruby with them to save the world. And he was like, I don't get it. Why don't they just like bludgeon them with chairs? Like, keep them where they are. They're trapped anyway. Just kill them with chairs. Just
he didn't want to kill them.
Ruby.
He wanted to like spare them.
But he didn't want to spare them. He wanted to trap them for 600 years in a, you know, in another dimension that was barren where they just sort of starved to death. So I got the point. And he was like, oh, they could just, you know, they're stuck there anyway. It was like, they can go to the TARDIS. They could go and get some other stuff to help them out. They could do it, you know, they could.
There's options. There's options.
Never overthink these things because there's always a way around this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it being ultimately quite a low stakes romp. You know, they're like, gentlemen, we just want some fun, chasing them around. And the prosthetics as well and the character designs were so good. Some of the best we've ever had. Again, like, we're spoiled, I think, at the minute in Doctor Who. It's easy to see like costumes, characters like that just look so polished, such high production value on the whole thing again. And just forget how good it is, because I think consistently it's been to such a high standard, the show lately, that it's really easy to nitpick these little points, especially story points, and overlook, I think, like, the behind the scenes of it is extraordinary.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, for me, like, I actually was really gagged at the scene where she was like, and I want to be you, Ruby, and we cut to the outside and we see the lightning strike. There was not a second where I thought, oh my God, Ruby's dead. There was not a moment where I was like, oh, Ruby's dead. But I just loved like how is she going to get away out of this one? Like, I loved being able to follow this. And I also just like talking from an actor standpoint, Indira Varma, who isn't new to the Whoniverse, I just thought she was so great in like a real camp over the top villain. Like, what is better than a wedding? Like, it was so fun. And you could just tell that like she was having fun in the role, and it made me have fun watching it. I think that's my big takeaway from this episode is just I had so much fun.
I had a lot of fun as well. I had so much fun. And I need to just give like a particular shout out as well. Like, again, the little twist with the setup about like, oh, tap twice to change your moves, just don't go into battle mode. And I thought, I really hope they come into battle mode. And then
that was Chekhov's gun.
And that be the resolution of that was Chekhov's gun. And girls, she was fine. And them having a little fight to Poker Face, orchestral version, such a nice little cutaway, such a funny moment. It was just good. And then the bird entering with its bent beak and being like, look what she did to me. It was so good and silly. And maybe that was even that, like, the moment the doctor's like sobbing. It's like, what have I done? You're going to die now. Like, it was actually a little bit tonal whiplash in that moment that the doctor was like crying his eyes out. But also, like, we've just watched like, you know, a Ruby fight scene over Lady Gaga. It just didn't like,
I get that.
I struggled to know what I was meant to, in that moment. I was like, am I meant to be upset or am I meant to be laughing? Because
that's very fair.
But anyway, It was good.
No, it was so much fun. So one sort of critique I guess I'd have, and this isn't really so much for this episode, it's for the series as a whole, is that I don't think that we are spending enough time with the Doctor and Ruby in the TARDIS. Like, it feels to me like in almost every episode, sort of bar Space Babies really, we arrive and they're already in the story. Like, the Devil's Cord, the Devil's Cord, they actually had a really, really great scene in the TARDIS before that. So like in this episode, we're arriving there already. In the Regency episode, like in 73 Yards, we get there and they're like, we are in Wales, and they're coming out the TARDIS, and then Dot and Bubble, like they're already in the Dot and Bubble. Like, I don't think I rewatched recently The Doctor's Wife, which I'm very excited to once we've finished this season of Doctor Who to maybe do for an episode of Wholala. And it's a very jam-packed episode, but we get 2 minutes at the beginning of the Dr. Amy and Rory in the TARDIS sort of chatting. And then we get 2 minutes at the end of them back in the TARDIS sort of being like, wow, what an adventure. Let's talk about that for a minute. And I think we need those little scenes with the Doctor and Ruby because that just helps build... I mean, don't get me wrong, I love them both and I care about them both so much, but it just helps attach myself to this continual thread of they're going on adventures. And I think this is also partly leaning into, which we've spoken before about how some of the episodes feel like they're a bit out of place. Like series 3 for me with the Doctor and Martha felt so beautifully like a thread of an adventure. Like you could see they'd gone from A to B to C to D to E. And part of that is because of these little scenes in the TARDIS. And for me, anyway, I really feel like I've been noticing they're not there.
Right, that makes sense. I think, again, it's one of these constraints of the 45-minute thing. It's like, what's the easiest cut you can make? Just chuck them into the story.
Yeah.
And then they just do a cold open, and then it's like, we're already here, and we're 20 minutes in. And
yeah, it does save time. It does save time.
It's almost like you jump in as the threat has already kicked in. You know, you arrive in 73 Yards, within a minute they've stepped on the thread. You arrive in Boom, within a minute he stepped on the landmine. You arrive in the Bridgerton episode, someone's dead before the credits have run and they're already inside and dancing. So I totally understand that. I think, all of it, I want more padding because I like the slow emotional moments that just stay in one place for a bit longer. I think without jumping all over the shop. I like moments where characters could just have good conversations, which almost feels like that's what we got most of inside like Rogue's ship this time, was just time for the Doctor and Rogue to just like chat and have that like interaction with each other. That was really good. And same with the Star Beast, the ending where Donna and the Doctor get time to kind of chat, and it's like, but why does it have to end? Why can't we just be here, having a coffee? And I was thinking, why can't we just be here
having a coffee?
Because I like the moments where we're just having a coffee.
Me too.
But there's not a lot of time for just, a pause and moments without soundtrack and moments to just digest what's happening, and for the characters to digest the madness of what's happening.
We did nearly die.
Exactly. Just give it a couple more minutes. But I agree. We do just arrive, and it's very hard to then place how long have they been traveling. How are we feeling about traveling with the Doctor at this stage in the series? It's the finale next week. How are we feeling? Ruby Sunday, and we don't really know.
I do think it's a bit weird, and I guess, again, a critique for the wider season, just with, I personally don't believe 8 episodes is long enough for a series Doctor Who. And that isn't just me coming from a Doctor Who fan of like, I want more, even though that is true. Like, when we get halfway through the series in 73 Yards, and Ruby's talking to Kate and she says like, oh, I barely knew him. And I'm like, we're halfway through your series. When I think about halfway through the series for other people, like you should know the Doctor by now. You shouldn't feel like you've barely known him. Like that sits weirdly with me. And I think that is a large part of the fact that we're only going to get 8 episodes and we'll only really have 1 2-parter as well. I think we've really felt that in this series, is that we've only had 1 2-parter and we've not even had it yet. So that's certainly something that I'm feeling.
I've seen a lot of people say that online. I've seen people saying like, I feel like if you're a new viewer, you've not had much time to really get to know the Doctor beyond his stories. Not sure I fully agree with that. I think they've made that point better than I just said it. Do I really agree with that? I don't know. I know the Doctor and I know Doctor Who inside out.
Yeah.
But things do happen very quickly.
It's hard for us to
series, that's for sure.
blindly critique it because we know the source material so well.
Yeah, I think 8 times 45 minutes, when I guess I was hoping for 10 times 1 hour. It's a bit of a bummer. I don't know if they're changing that for series 2. I imagine they're not. It's probably going to be the same again.
I think it probably will be the same again. But this is the thing we were saying as well, is that because they're filming them kind of back to back, they're not getting enough time or any time to hear critiques of the season before they're starting production for the next one. So It'll be interesting to see. I think I'll be really interested to see what changes they make, if any, for season 3.
Yeah. My final point, we had some nice seeds, I think, for the theory corner. I felt like those were woven in quite nicely to this episode as well, without being too obvious.
Yes.
We obviously saw Susan Triad again in a portrait, and it's like, wait, who is that? Sorry. And then they don't get much time to reflect on that because they never do.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they both stand and go, no, wait, this is really weird, actually. But they always have to kind of move on from that point pretty quick.
Like, let's come back to that.
It's all coming together next week, so whatever. I've also realised, though, she plays a lot of mothers. She was nanny to the babies. She was Lindy's mummy. And she's now the Duke's late mother.
That's true. Let me think about it. Yeah.
I mean, I think that probably parallels that they're like, you know, first outing babies.
You could even,
but then also,
you could even push that further that she's always a caregiver, because then in Wild Blue Yonder, she's like the maid and handmaid in Twilight Newton. She is the person feeding people in the Beatles episode and giving people like food and sustenance as the din lady. Is the ambulance? She's the one who's there meant to be giving people medical care and assistance. So you could kind of theory circle that further and say she's always a caregiver.
Yes. And in 73 Yards, she's the one kind of looking out for Ruby when she's like, oh, is that what you've got on? Oh, you're going to be called out here. Oh, can I? Oh. And she's like, you know, oh, could you go and tell her that, you know, it's fine and I'll, you know, I'm sorry. And she's like, oh, I'll try. And she's the one who sort of shows kindness to Ruby. Yeah. My theory as it runs at the minute is that Susan Triad is not a baddie per se. But is going to turn out to be a bit of a victim of her own technology.
I can see that.
We'll find out what's going on with that. Or maybe becomes bad by no fault of her own.
Yeah.
There was another line where Ruby says that Bridgerton is her actual dream. She's like, oh, this is my actual dream. And I'm like, I was like, is this your actual dream? As in, is this literally your fantasy made real? And again, your powers of manifestation have created Bridgerton around you. And that is why these little artifacts of, you know, it being slightly unrealistic for 1816 have come real for you. It's because you have literally manifested Bridgerton. And then there's a little line that Rogue makes as well that mirrors something that Meep said. The Meep says, just wait until... Oh, what is he saying? He sounds like,
wait until you meet the boss.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's like, oh, a Time Lord is so rare. Wait until I tell the boss. And then he says, this job has so much paperwork ever since we got that new boss. Dun,
dun, dun. It's interesting.
Probably a season 2 payoff.
Yeah, I think that as with the 60th, he was setting up stuff with series 1. I think with series 1, they're also setting up stuff with series 2. And I don't think that's something we're going to get an answer for in this series. I think the S Triad is going to be the main series arc for this season. But yeah, very excited to see where it's going to go. The more we get towards the finale, the less I think the Trickster's going to be in it. And the more I think it's just going to be something to do with Treasure.
I think that was a very sly misdirect in the music.
I think so too.
Just for you.
But I also think that it's going to be a lot simpler than we all think. And I think it's probably just going to be Susan Twist giving Ruby down as a baby. We already know she's in every single era.
But why? But who is she? Why? I'm excited to see how it all comes together. I think RTD does some very good finales, and I'm glad he's had the chance now to almost like sow the seeds, place all those little teasers he wants to place. Mm-hmm. You know what, season 2 theory, I'm going to make it early. The boss is a real big bad, and in order to retrieve Rogue from whatever dimension he's in, the boss knows how to get him, but it requires the Doctor to do him a favour.
Ooh, that's interesting. You assume he, him is pronoun. No, that's interesting. I like that. I like that idea. I'm excited for the next one. But I think that's also great Doctor and just great TV is that like this season isn't even over and I'm already thinking about stuff that I'm excited to see in the next one.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, as mentioned, there have been so many fun moments in this episode, but none as many as I'm going to put in this little game, Alasdair. Are you ready?
What is it?
For a game of Camp or Damp? In case this is your first time listening to Wholala, we like to play a little game called Camp or Damp where we run through some of the moments from the episode. We scream a lot and we talk about whether they're camp or damp. Alasdair, are you ready?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Horny 15, camp or damp?
Yes, specifically camp, the moment specifically where he's lip syncing Can't Get You Out of My Head and like weaves in a little wink. Very camp.
Very camp. Well, that leads me amazingly on to my second one. La la la, la 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 la. The Kylie scene, camp or damp?
Really camp. I think it follows a really lovely, strong tradition in Doctor Who of including camp classics. in the story all the way ever since episode 2 featured The End of the World. Episode 2 featured Toxic
by Britney Spears. I agree with you there. That's fun. I wonder, well, you know what, in Classic Who, they did, much as it's not maybe like pop divas, they did include pop music, like the Beatles featured in an episode of the first Doctor's era, and I think they even like had a little clip of them singing, because they were of the era, so they've always featured like pop music and popular icons in the show. And finally, cosplaying Space Birds, Camp or Damp.
Cosplaying Space Birds, it's a great, silly idea. I love what they're wearing. I love the blue one with the long twiddly moustache.
The Vicar!
Yeah, he was good. I tweeted on Wholala like, oh, he doesn't get his kiss because of woke. Justice for him, really. But I thought they were good. I thought they were silly. There was so much campery. I mean, you didn't even bring up a fight scene with psychic earrings to
Poker Face
to Gaga.
There's too much to list.
It's just off the Richter, this one. You could do a Camp or Damp just for moments in this. The whole setting, a Regency era gay romance with inclusions of Billie Eilish, Lady Gaga, dress up birds who just want to, cosplay as
birds,
real people.
They want to have
bodies.
fun. Oh, birds
just want to have fun.
They really do. Yeah, there's far too much camp to fit into one episode of Camp and Damp on this. We're toying with the idea for our little Pride special at the end of the month of going through our favourite queer and camp moments of the entire season as a whole Hulu episode. So let us know if that's something that you'd like to listen to. It's always tricky finding fun facts from an episode that's literally been out about 24 hours, but I do have a couple ones for you. So Jonathan Groff, who played Rogue in this episode, was previously unfamiliar with Doctor Who when he was cast. So Russell T Davies, similar to with Ncuti Gatwa, gave him a selection of episodes to watch, after which he became a passionate fan of the show.
I love that. I would want to see. I want to see what's on the RTD watch list as well.
Probably a lot of his episodes.
Yeah, probably. Because it was interesting. They've done a lot of interviews, for example, with Ruby and Millie now, where they keep asking them to react to either Doctor Who scenes or choose like this monster versus that one or this Doctor versus that one, and you can see that they've got a slightly deeper knowledge for some versus others, but they do a very good job of concealing which it is that they're kind of more familiar with. And some of those are almost moments I would have thought of as quite like staple watch list moments, but of course they haven't had time to watch,
yeah, of course,
every episode of the Revival series.
No,
so
for sure.
Nor should they have to, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, another fun fact I have, Russell T Davies was previously quite publicly not fond of Richard E. Grant's portrayal of the Doctor in The Scream of Shalka, which the BBC declared non-canon once a 2005 revival was first announced in 2004. However, after this episode aired, Russell commented on an Instagram image of the Shalka Doctor saying, "Canon," with a little heart, suggesting that a lot more is canon than we thought.
Canon. My friend DM'd me the other day actually and said, "I've just heard that Peter Cushing is the Doctor in a bunch of movies. Can you enlighten me about that?" And I said, "No, I can't."
Have you not seen them? Those are really good. We should watch them.
I've not
They're
seen
so
them,
good.
and I'm never going to profess to know things I don't know.
No,
so
don't.
I'm
No.
Sorry, such.
Honesty hour on the podcast.
It's outside of my skill set, this one. So I.
We have
I
to
said,
do
no,
them. It's so
good.
good. And Bernard Cribbins is in it as well. It's so camp.
Yeah, I did know that, but I was like, I'm not familiar enough. But yeah, I think it's just great fun. I like the degree of ambiguity as well around which Richard E. Grant character is this. Is it the Great Intelligence? Is it a comic relief special? Is it Shalka? Is it a new extra thing? Is this our next Doctor? Who knows? This could be the announcement for 16 for all we know, which I'd welcome because I think he's campus tits.
Yeah.
Richard E. Grant.
There was a really fun bit in the Rose novelization where she's looking at all these like sort of proof that the Doctor exists in Clive's shed, and she's looking at a version of the Doctor who I think was like a black woman. This was before the Fugitive Doctor. There was a version of the Doctor in the wheelchair. There's all these Doctors that we just don't know about yet. So maybe it fits in somewhere else.
I just think in including this, they were almost just making the point of like, we hear your discourse. We hear you're upset about pre-Hartnell Doctors. And we're doubling down. We don't care. Like, here we go. You know what? Here's another one. Yeah. Get mad. And I think
Get mad.
In a way, it's not just to aggravate the fans. Obviously, it's not just designed for that. If it was, it's a little bit funny. But also, I think the point is, it doesn't matter. It's almost just like pick and choose and believe what you want and interpret how you like. But the point is that this show is infinite and boundless, and we don't want it to be constrained, I think, by any of these little rules about which order should or shouldn't they come in. I think even in scrambling the order of the Doctor's faces was to say, It's a bit like something the Toymaker said. It was like, I made a jigsaw out of your past or something. It's all a bit of a mess now, and it doesn't really matter.
Not at all. And one final little fun fact I have. So recently, William Russell, who played Ian Chesterton in the first Doctor Zero, Doctor Who, passed away. And the BBC One and iPlayer broadcast the episode had a tribute to William Russell at the end of its credits. But this did not feature on the Disney Plus version of the broadcast.
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah.
I wonder if they just had different versions for upload and they just only tweaked.
I guess they'd already submitted it or something for the Disney Plus one, but I just think that's really weird that there's now two different versions of this episode. And it makes me wonder what slight changes there are that we might not know about with other ones.
I know there's a difference in terms of how they show the titles. So as in when they name kind of the exec producer, the director, the writer, it appears in a different order, I think, on screen in the Disney Plus versions. And it's something to do with an American standardization for how they present that. So I think there are different versions for the US and UK, but otherwise I think the edit is generally the same.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a shame though. And yeah, we were remembering William Russell this week as well. And we made a post remembering some moments from his life. And we were very sad to hear that as well this week. He was, I think, 99 as well when he passed
97
away.
or something, yeah.
He was 99, which is an incredible age to reach. And he had such a life and such a career. And as we said as well, really set the template and the blueprint for the show and was such a strong advocate of the show and just made it what it was. And really was one of the, very literally one of the original companions. Mm-hmm. And very sad to hear that he passed. But I'm really glad that we got him back one last time recently for The Power of the Doctor. I think, just seeing him sat there in that support circle with his little Ian sticker stuck on him and I'm sorry, did you say huh? Was just so endearing and so sweet, and I'm glad we just had that little reunion moment to recognise him as well.
Me too. Well, thank you so much, dear listener, for listening to this episode of Wholala. If you enjoyed the episode, we would love to hear what you have to say. Reach out to us on all of our social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, X, Threads, TikTok, all of which are at Wholala Pod, and you can also listen to old episodes of the podcast on our YouTube channel, also at Wholala Pod.
Twitter till I die. You can't make me call it X. I caught myself in this episode saying, we did our post on X. And as soon as I said it, I was like, we did a tweet. Tweeting. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead. And rate us. Please go ahead and rate us 5 stars. We really appreciate that. You can follow the pod as well to find out when new episodes drop. And you can support us on Coffee, KO-FI. You can buy us coffee. You can share this podcast with a friend. You guys, I think, must have been doing this a lot recently because we've recently entered the Spotify podcast charts in the TV and film category a few times, which has been very exciting to see alongside some of our absolute faves. Every time we see we're in there with some of the very best, by which I mean the Come Along Pod. It's always a delight to see us in there with them. So yeah, we're very grateful for that as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, next week we are diving into the series finale, part 1 of the series finale of season 1 of Doctor Who, The Legend of Ruby Sunday.
The Legend of Ruby Sunday. I'm so excited for it. I love a finale. It gets me all
love a finale, me.
Giddy. Love a finale, me. And I love that we're going to be seeing the actual final episode in cinemas and rewatching next week's episode in cinemas. And we will let you know if it feels better watching it in a cinema compared to watching it on the TV.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wholala, and we will see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Have a lovely week until then, my darlings.
Bye.
Bye. Try to avoid the shoulders.